haven't always been the best stewards of our environment. And I think doing a project like this will reinforce the need for that stewardship, the value of these natural environments, and the importance of communities working together to protect their estuaries.
I'm from the Kwakwaka'wakw, Nuchanoth, and Comox. And in Comox, we're from the Aitsin, which means people from the sun. And Wedlet is my traditional name. Means no matter how much wealth you have and give away, there's never an end. Why is Kus Kus Sum important to me? Because it really illustrates how long our people have been around and how they've been in relationship with the land. Kus Kus Sum translates that it's really slippery. It's on the beach, right? Kus Sum means slippery, and when you add the Kus Kus Sum, it means it's really slippery. And so it's translated today as Kus Kus Sum, but the proper way is Kus Sum or Kus Kus Sum.
One of the three partners in this project, along with Project Watershed, is the Comox First Nation. This is part of their unceded traditional territory that we're looking to restore back to its pre-settlement state. And so this is also not just a story about salmon and people coming together for a healthier vision of the future. It's also a story about learning to do government-to-government relations and how to make reconciliation in action.
Kus Kus Sum is so important to me because when I think about the site, I think about the critical habitat nature of the site and where it's located in the heart of the salmon migration corridor. And the fact that all the salmon stocks that are returning to spawn as adults in the Solemn River watershed or in the Puntledge River watershed have to migrate past that site.
I've lived in this community since 1979, and of course, the sawmill was a major employer here throughout most of that era.
When I first moved to the Comox Valley, it was still in operation. And so it was going all the time. You know, you could hear the clanging and the banging and the movement of logs, and people never thought much of it. There was a lot of Comox band members employed, and so they were active in it. But it was a contradiction.
So the great thing that we're now doing is raising awareness so that we can get the money that we need to pull out almost 4 hectares of pavement. In some cases, that's over a foot thick with rebar coming through it.
We want to take this community eyesore and turn it into a community ecological asset. And I think about, you know, what the site must have looked like before it was developed, and it's really important to me to see that we're able to restore the site back to a natural functioning condition, because then it's going to be able to support fish and wildlife, it's going to be a community asset, it's going to support recreational opportunities, and we also have an opportunity with the restoration design to build in some flood attenuation capacity into the site as well.
So once the wall is taken down and the landscape is restored, there'll be a natural movement of water from the river when it overflows onto that part of the floodplain.
What happens is that the river flow changes. It comes down quite heavily from the Puntledge and Solemn River into the Courtenay River and then pushes against this iron corrugated back wall to then come directly across the river to start erosion on the high bank side of the river.
Looking forward at climate change and sea level rise, this is really a very important area to make these sorts of changes to let nature look after us and look after itself.
You can see what the damage that's being done with the corrugated iron backing that's vertical to the water, because in salmon running time the seals will herd the salmon against the backwater, and it's not a fair fight. They can certainly eat a lot of salmon very quickly and get very fat and sleek.
Okay, so there's a real possibility that if we're not successful in this venture, we'll permanently lose this property to development, and it is critically located in the heart of the salmon migration corridor. So we're not going to be doing those stocks any service by not capitalizing on this opportunity.
Removing all of that is the #1 thing we can do to try and turn around the health of our Comox estuary and bring back salmon. The Courtenay River opens up into the Comox estuary, and that Comox estuary is part of Bain Sound, and that's the body of water that kind of sits at the end of our whole Comox Valley watershed. Now, Bain Sound itself is one of the most beautiful, valuable, and highly productive bodies of water in the Salish Sea. It's also the second most important estuary in all of British Columbia by a number of measures, including the presence of herring, the presence of internationally significant numbers of migratory birds. And so Bain Sound and the Comox estuary are incredible jewels to our community.
Estuary is a word that comes from estrogen, and estrogen means fertility. And so when you live on an estuary, you're living in one of the most very fertile places of the earth. Everybody's seen those maps of the earth at night with lit up by electric lights, right? Spots of illumination, and you see how they're clustered. Well, an estuary is like that in that there are nodes of life on the planet. In other words, the variety of life and the biodiversity is greater in some areas, and the greatest is along estuaries.
If I can look back in 15 years and see a beautiful riverside forest and know that I helped play a role in making that possible, I think that's a gift, and I would like other people to share in that feeling. So I think that's why we should all get behind Kus Kus Sum and support Project Watershed to make this a reality for the Comox Valley.